Let's talk about root causes of violence. Why are we seeing more violence today? What is causing this? What's kind of at the root of this, so that we can better understand it. Well, if you look at our if you look at the situation today, our economy over the past couple of years has really taken a hit. There's been a lot of people that have lost their jobs due to the economic conditions. A lot of people that may have their home in jeopardy, which causes a lot of angst. We're seeing a lot more road rage out there. People are, in a hurry to get someplace. They're angry about something. Not only do they sometimes flash somebody a nonverbal sign to register their disgust. They may say some words to somebody. And, of course, in the worst-case scenario, we have somebody that takes out a gun and starts firing. And I read recently in the local paper here about somebody that was doing that, was in a moving vehicle and had a gun and were shooting people going by. Violence can be can come from those sources. People just get upset and they take an unnatural act, or it can generate from somebody going to the movie and somebody's cell phone rings and they get upset about that. So, the economy, losing their jobs, being real impatient about things, real tense about things, can cause people to do things that are what we would consider normally non-characteristic. But some of the root causes is anger, and anger is a very strong emotion. It's a very powerful emotion. Think about, if you will, the last time you were really angry about something. Probably in that moment that you were very angry, that was all you could think about. And it just encompasses you. And a lot of times anger is the appropriate emotion. If something happens that is upsetting to you, sometimes anger is the appropriate emotion. Fortunately, most of us are able to process that anger, deal with it, and then move on. We don't carry it with us. We're able to manage that emotion so that it doesn't continue to fester and eat at us and just, engulf us. But for some people, anger is an emotion that's hard to manage. And it's an emotional state that can range, like we said, from just a minor irritation. I'm really angry about this. I'm really angry by the fact that you weren't home when you said you were going to be home. I'm really angry that you borrowed my sweater and you didn't return it. I'm very angry that you took the car out and you used up all my gas and you didn't fill it up. And typically, once those things are mitigated, once the sweater's returned, once the gas tank is replenished, once you set some time boundaries and those are observed, then that anger goes away. But sometimes that anger can escalate into intense rage. And that rage then can manifest it through addiction to substances. It can manifest it through post-traumatic stress syndrome, and it can manifest itself during depression. And in those situations, anger just is something that causes people to do things that in an uncharacteristic manner. So again, part of the workplace violence or violence in general, one of the root causes is anger. Another one is stress. And I don't know about you, but I don't know many people that don't have some type of stress in their lives. Again, when we look at all the things confronting us today between, our jobs, our families, getting things done, having enough time to do everything, there's a lot of things that naturally stack up against us that are stressing us out. And because of that, it may lend people to display uncharacteristic stress. If we step back and go back to high school physics, stress is actually a physics term, and it refers to the amount of force that's applied to something. Well, another physics term is strain, and this relates to the response to stress. So we hear a lot about stress and strain. Somebody's stressed out, and the strain of that causes people to get sick, causes people to exhibit behaviors that are uncharacteristic. Well, if you think about a bridge and the stress applied to that bridge, when it becomes too much, the strain of that stress causes that bridge to crumble. So if you think about human beings, when we have so much stress against us, the strain of that sometimes causes people to snap and to do things, again, that they might normally not do, that causes people to do things they might not normally do if they weren't in such a stressful situation. So that's why we have to look at people that are angry and upset. That's why we have to look at people that are under stress to see if we can help mitigate that to get them some relief. Another cause of violence is rejection. And this is the feeling of being unwanted, feeling alone, feeling lonely. And in my research on the Yale situation, that was one of the causes that the person that murdered the fellow lab technician, that's one of the things that caused him to exhibit this violence. He was rejected by her, and that had a profound impact on him to the point where he got very violent and unfortunately fatally injured her. If you've read anything about the shooter or the alleged shooter in the Arizona situation, some former friends had been interviewed, and it was reported by one that the reported gunman was profoundly affected by the breakup with a girlfriend in high school. If you've read about situations where there have been some mass murders in some workplaces, you know, some of it just seems to be random firings, but there have been numerous reports that I have read about a gunman that has gone into a school or a place of business and started shooting, and has spared some people because they recall that person was kind to them. So, you know, this feeling of rejection is something that can manifest itself in violence, and it's something that we really need to concentrate on. So how do we minimize letting violence in the door? One thing I think we have to look at is our background checks for our applicants. Do we do background checks on people that are potential employers? And if so, how well do we do our searches? Do we look at work history? Do we do any kind of background check with criminal? Do we do any kind of credit check? Now, it might depend on the type of position that we are looking for, but again, we need to do our due diligence and make sure that we are that we're investigating that work history. Conversely, you know, if somebody calls us for a reference for a former employee, many times one of the things they're going to ask us is, are they available for rehire? And typically most people are available for rehire. The reasons why they would not be eligible for rehire could be because maybe they were dismissed by the organization because, you know, they stole money or they stole intellectual property. But it could be that there were some violent tendencies or outbreak. Would we disclose that to a potential business that was checking references? You know, and I think in that situation you need to you know, consult with your labor attorneys. But from what I understand, if you're giving a reference on somebody and what you say is true, then you can't be, you know, that can't be held against you. But one thing I would think about is just as HR managers, as HR professionals on this call, think about, you know, what do we do to minimize people coming in the door? Do we do appropriate background checks on our people coming in? And then when people are calling us for a reference, what kind of information are we providing so that we don't set them up to make a negligent hiring decision on somebody that caused them to be terminated?